Now, continuing our coverage of the trial of the former Minneapolis police officer who is now convicted of the murder and the death of Houston native George Floyd, this morning we are joined by ISD Interim Superintendent Dr. Grenita Lathan. Dr. Lathan, thank you so very much for joining us this morning. When you look at what happened yesterday, what were your thoughts when you heard that guilty verdicts were coming from the jury?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. You know, a lot of emotions yesterday. It was sad that we as a nation had to be on pins and needles waiting for the verdict, for people to do the right thing based on what we all saw nationally on the news. My heart continues to hurt for the Floyd family. And so it was a lot of emotions. But I also thought, you know, the teacher in me said, the person that killed Mr. Floyd, he was outside of being a police officer with power. He was a human being that saw Mr. Floyd, didn't see him as a man. And so it takes me back to that we must, starting in our local public schools and all of our communities, start with training people of how to respect all people, how to see people as individuals and not in a different way, and that color should not have an impact on how you treat a person.
Now, Dr. Lathan, as an interim superintendent for one of the largest school districts in the nation, how do you think something like this affects the children who will be reading about it in future books that will be published about it?
I think future children will be impacted because, number one, at least they will know the history. Some of us did not know our history when we went through public schools, and so they'll know the history, but it still will have to take an emotional toll on our children because we're all daily confronted, worried about what will happen if there's an interaction with the police. And so it will have a major impact. But I believe we are now ready as a country, as a nation, to start the dialogue and to open up the conversations, the hard conversations that we all need to have about how people are treated in this country. And also the additional resources and training that police officers need.
What do you think the legacy of George Floyd is going to be, not just in this community, but in other communities around the country?
His legacy will be that finally, as a nation, we started. Notice I said we've started to come together, and we will remember the pain that we all experienced. And unfortunately, his family continues publicly to experience based on what happened. But we will remember, and I pray that we will do better as a country and as a community.
You know, I can remember when I was in school, we always kind of used things that were in the news to, I guess, further our education as to what's happening in the community. How do you think that is going to be handled now with teachers, not just in HISD, but in other districts?
Well, I will first talk about the phenomenal teachers that we have in HISD. They will use it as a teachable moment. They will tie it to what's occurring not only locally, but also nationally. But teachers all across the country will use it as a place, a starting point with students. But I said it will open up also a conversation about race, a much needed conversation that we need to hold in this country around race.
Dr. Grenita Lathan, thank you so very much for joining us and providing your insight. And first off, congratulations on the new position you will be headed towards as well.
Thank you.